Konnichiwa minasan, I'm Matayu and this is manga you may have missed. Let's talk Tezuka. Osamu Tezuka is typically referred to as the god of manga and the godfather of anime. He's considered the Japanese equivalent to Walt Disney. He was born in 1928 and, at age 17, kicked off what is known as the golden age of manga with Diary of Ma-chan and Shin Tarakajima, or New Treasure Island. Tezuka's style influenced almost every aspect of the modern-day manga industry. You know anime eyes? You can thank Tezuka for popularizing that drawing style. Tezuka died in 1989 at age 60. In that time, he produced over 700 separate manga. The complete manga works of Osamu Tezuka, published in Japan, consists of around 400 volumes. I could do a show just on Tezuka's works alone. His most popular works include Astro Boy, Kimba the White Lion, Buddha, Princess Knight, and Phoenix. But our fare today is none of these, as you might have guessed from the title of the video. No, our story is about a god with a scalpel, a miracle maker, artisan of life, the genius surgeon mankind's been waiting for, Black Jack. Black Jack is the story of the titular character, an unlicensed medical doctor who charges obscenely high fees, yet is the greatest surgeon the world has ever known. The manga ran from 1973 to 1983 in Weekly Shonen Champion, published by Akira Shoten. Black Jack's 240-odd chapters have been mostly compiled into 17 volumes, which are considered the deluxe edition, and has been published in North America by Vertical Incorporated. The reason for this wording is that Black Jack has never been completely collected, and what has been collected is completely out of publishing order, though the new order was given by Tezuka himself. Fortunately, Black Jack is completely episodic. The only chapter with any plot significance is chapter 12, which was published as the third chapter in the first volume. There is no indicator for any chronological order, aside from a couple of chapters with recurring minor characters, which are placed in the correct order. Sounds confusing, I know, but it doesn't really matter. Due to this, and the fact that Black Jack chapters are 20 pages long, we'll be looking at chapters 1 and 167, the first two chapters in volume 1. Is There a Doctor begins with a bad driver and a car crash. Well, I guess that's how the Mercedes-Benz...
He's still riding a high from never having to experience freeze ever again.
One day, somewhere in Europe, two policemen pull up to the wreck. To their shock, they identify the victim as Akudo, son of a famous tycoon named Mr. Nicola. Akudo is brought to a hospital where his father demands to see him. Well, on the plus side, he has his Halloween costume all set for next year. Mr. Nicola demands to know if he can be saved. He says he'll pay any price, but if the boy dies, so does the doctor. The doctor points out that pretty much everything is broken and it'll be a miracle if he lasts 3 days. Mr. Nicola does not take kindly to the news. He then instructs his people to scour the world for a better doctor and drives off. He tells his driver that he's the greatest businessman on earth and surely the power of money can save his son. The call goes out to several people, none of which can help. Nicola turns down anyone who can't guarantee success, which is everyone, until his assistant brings to his attention a doctor from Japan who has reportedly cured 300 patients. The assistant doesn't know his real name, but he goes by Black Jack. Our eponymous surgeon arrives by plane. Tall and foreboding, with mismatched hair and skin, though you really can't tell from the manga, even Nicola wonders if he can be trusted. Black Jack is rushed to the hospital and takes a look at the patient. He says he can do the surgery, but he'll have to replace most of Akudo's body. In other words, another person has to be sacrificed to save him. Sometime later, a police car pulls up outside Tailor Davy. They enter and ask for Davy the tailor. They ask if Davy was present at the crash and tell him that it was his fault. Davy says that that's ridiculous. The crash happened because Akudo is a horrible driver. The police say that Davy has a motive, and Davy points out that so does every other person in the city. The policemen, tired of hearing logical reasoning, grab him and arrest him for attempted murder despite his pleas that he's innocent. His mother runs to him before he's put in the car, and Davy tells her that he's sure to be proven innocent. His mother wonders what's going on as the policemen call Nicola and tell him they've fulfilled his request. Nicola tells him to convict him by the end of the day and returns to his golf, saying Davy needs to be killed legally. At Davy's trial, a witness takes the stand and says that Davy is a fine, upstanding citizen and that Akudo was hated by everyone. Nicola instructs that the witness be gagged, then leaves, followed by Black Jack. He says that he's well aware that Akudo is a troublemaker, but that isn't the issue. He just wants to save his son. He asks if Black Jack could use Davy for Akudo's operation, which Black Jack says is possible. He's giving Nicola a funny look and asks if the tycoon really wants to sacrifice Davy for his good-for-nothing son. Nicola dismisses this, saying that the world doesn't exist solely for the righteous. Money and power are what matters. He cites Black Jack himself as an example. Black Jack practices medicine without a license, despite being the best surgeon in the world. Meanwhile, to the shock of everyone present, the court finds Davy guilty and sentences him to death. Nicola walks away and tells Black Jack to prepare for the operation. Davy swears to his mother that he'll be back and is taken away. He is told that his body will be used to save Akudo and tells Black Jack that he serves the devil as the latter administers an injection. He slips away and is removed from the cell. In the OR, Black Jack tells Nicola that he will bear no responsibility for anything that happens after the operation. Nicola tells him that's fine, as long as he's saved, and Blackjack instructs everyone to wait outside. He works alone. We then get a surgery montage as Blackjack cuts into Akudo's body. A small note on the time frame of Blackjack. It's meant to take place slightly into the future from present day being the 70s. In a later chapter, Blackjack states that he can't trust these newfangled CAT scan machines. Tezuka actually held a degree in medicine, so most of the situations of Blackjack are relatively accurate. I say a little into the future because Blackjack cures almost everything through surgery of some kind, including some things I'm not sure are considered operable with even today's medical knowledge. The operation ends and Blackjack says that Akudo should be able to remove his bandages in 2 months' time. Nicola inquires as to Davy's condition, and Blackjack says he's now bits and pieces. Nicola declines the offer to confirm this. Blackjack tells Nicola to have the money delivered to his hotel and states that he'll remain until the bandages come off, although that's where his responsibility ends. 2 months later, Blackjack removes the bandages to reveal Akudo, fully recovered. Nicola praises the doctor's skills, and Blackjack takes his leave. Nicola tells the boy to rest, but wouldn't you know it, the boy sneaks out of the hospital. Nicola takes the news rather well, yelling for the police to find him. Akudo shows up at Davy's tailor shop. To Davy's mother's shock and disbelief, Akudo claims to be her son. She denies this, saying that her son is dead, but Akudo says it's not true. As proof, he starts to use a pair of scissors. His mother realizes that only Davy has such precision scissor work. As it turns out, Akudo did end up dying. Blackjack drugged Davy and performed plastic surgery to give Davy Akudo's face. He said there was no point in operating on a rotten body and soul. Nicola is still looking for him, so Davy suggests that they escape to a foreign country, with the payment for the operation that Blackjack gave him. Davy now regards Blackjack as some sort of angel. In silence, the doctor watches them drive away towards their new lives. Blackjack. Apart from being Japanese, his background is not known, nor his name. But he is a genius surgeon, and some call his skills divine. Today, too, the enigmatic doctor is performing a miracle with his scalpel somewhere. The second, or technically the 167th chapter, is called The First Storm of Spring. Blackjack is inspecting a girl's eye. He says that she's the first person ever to have brought a complaint about one of his operations. He admits that eye surgery isn't his specialty, but he believes the operation went well regardless. He doesn't fully understand her complaint, so she explains again. When she shuts her eyes, she sees a tall, handsome man staring at her. Blackjack assumes she's imagining it, but she believes otherwise. He claims she'll get used to it, but on the way out of his clinic, she sees the man again. That evening, Blackjack is accepting his fee from the girl's father. The man is confused as to why Blackjack only wanted free drinks for a month, but the doctor says that if he had billed the man for real, he'd have a heart attack. The man decides to stop asking and instead questions why Blackjack looks so down. He explains the girl's, Chiaki's, problem. He's calling it a point of honor as the doctor that treated her. Her father dismisses this, preferring to believe that Chiaki is merely taking note of a guy, nothing to do with the surgery, but Blackjack isn't so sure. Sometime later, Chiaki is walking with her friends when she sees the man again. She tells them about it, but they are equally dismissive. She sees him again, and again, and again, to the point where she starts to wonder if she really is going nuts. She shows up at Blackjack's clinic again 2 months later, still seeking the man. Blackjack posits either a mental cause or a real-life stalker. He grills Chiaki on her love life, but she says she'll be fine. It's not her he's worried about. Botching a mere cornea transplant reflects badly on him as a doctor. He then gets a startling idea. He calls the eye bank, and yes, these are real institutions, and asks who the donor of Chiaki's new cornea was. He is taken aback by what he hears and tells the hung-up telephone that he'll be right over. He offers to drive Chiaki back home on the way and swears that he'll sort the problem out. In the car, Chiaki asks what an eye bank is. Blackjack explains that leukoma, the disease that Chiaki had, clouds the cornea. To treat it, you replace the cornea with a new one. This is what an eye bank is for. It's like a blood bank, but they only stock one part of the eye, the cornea. Some elementary searching on Wikipedia states that leukoma with a C is a genus of moths, and leukoma with a K is a genus of saltwater clams. He might actually be referring to corneal dystrophy, which has exactly the same symptoms and treatment. Blackjack theorizes that Chiaki's mystery man is caused by the replacement cornea. Therefore, he's heading over to ask about the donor. He drops Chiaki off, and she asks one last question about how donations are done. Generally, the donors are dead. Blackjack abruptly leaves with that statement, and Chiaki starts to cry until she sees the man again. She questions who the person is and if he even exists, or if he's just a figment of her imagination. At the eye bank, Blackjack discovers that the previous owner of Chiaki's cornea was a woman named Yoriko Tate, who was murdered 3 months previously. Blackjack follows the trail to the police archives, where he learns that the 19-year-old college student was raped, then strangled. The case is still unsolved. He then goes to a human physics department at a university and asks if a strong visual stimulus could have imprinted an image onto a cornea. Specifically, the last thing the person saw before death. The professor says it's unlikely, but not entirely impossible. He says that maybe the cornea has an image of the killer as a parting joke. It's not until Blackjack gets into his car to leave that he realizes that this might be exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, Chiaki confesses to her father that she might have fallen in love with the man imprinted on her eye. Dad tells her not to crush on a guy that's not real.
Say it.
I don't want to, it's low-hanging fruit. He wants to find someone for her that actually exists. He contemplates Blackjack for a minute, but Chiaki has long since started ignoring him to draw a picture of her imaginary crush.
Say it.
Low-hanging fruit! She says she'll find him no matter what and storms off. Blackjack enters and says they'll need to operate again with a new cornea, and Dad shows him the drawing. Now able to identify a murderer, Blackjack races out, taking the picture. Meanwhile, Chiaki feels like he's close by. As she is out looking for her man, Blackjack is out looking for her. Through sheer plot convenience, Chiaki actually finds the man before Blackjack finds her. She wonders if she should approach him until he renders the internal debate moot by asking her what's going on. They sit down on a park bench and Chiaki tells her story. The man finds it bizarre, and Chiaki flushes with what she assumes is first love. The man states that life is full of mysteries and grabs her hand, to her surprise. As we know already, this is not first love. The man, who did in fact kill Yoriko Tate, assumes Chiaki knows everything and says he can't let her live either. He starts to strangle Chiaki in the same manner, but fortunately Blackjack drives by and recognizes the man from the drawing. Even more fortunately, Blackjack can throw scalpels with deadly accuracy, although in this case he merely disables the man's arm, then blinds him with his cape and punches him in the stomach. He then tends to Chiaki as the police arrive. The illegal practitioner gives the name John Doe to the police, who escort the man away. Chiaki is understandably traumatized by this experience. Blackjack waxes poetic for a second about how Yoriko's eye lived on to name her killer through Chiaki, then drives the girl and her father home. He tells Chiaki that, although her first love might have ended in a heartbreak, she shouldn't feel down, because it was a harbinger of the beginning of her true spring. The end. Despite the popularity of the Blackjack manga, the series didn't get its own animation until a theatrical movie and a 10-episode OVA were made in 1992. A 61-episode TV series was made in 2004, with a 17-episode continuation made in 2006. I've only seen the 2004 series, so that is what I'll be discussing. The episodes are adapted from various chapters of the manga, in no particular order, Kelsapries, and are rather toned down from their manga counterparts. They also expand the cast of characters to include several side characters with occasionally inane subplots. As the show is almost as episodic as the manga, this is rarely a problem. The only main character, aside from the eponymous doctor, is his assistant/adopted child/wife, long story, Pinocchio, an 18-year-old with the body and disposition of a 5-year-old, longer story. I initially found Pinocchio rather annoying, but she grew on me, kinda like a teratoma. I recommend the anime even if you haven't read the manga, or if you prefer happier endings. There are also various live-action films, and Blackjack has made appearances in various other shows and films, including an episode of the 1980 Astro Boy remake. Blackjack is wonderful. I'm glad to know Tezuka's medical training went to good use despite the fact that he never actually practiced medicine. Also, if I've gotten this done on time, this episode was uploaded on November 19th, 2013. Today is the 40th anniversary of Blackjack's first publishing. Happy birthday, Blackjack. An old one, but by God, a good one.
悲しげに咲く花に君の面影